Shut up, Evan.
And can I get one more as Margot?
Oh, God. Okay, let me think for one second. I have to bring Texas back. Evan, you shut up now.
I saw her like move through you. I just saw Margot like come out of you. So about this show, Hunting Wives, did you ever imagine that you would become a lesbian icon?
No, I did not. And I love it. I'm loving every moment of it. Keep bringing it. It's been wonderful. But this show, this character, it's not presented as the L word or there's a fluidity to it, a very wide fluidity in very many different ways. So it was more just like, I love the free bird that this woman is and like is what she is, but it was supposed to be on Stars. And so I think when you click on Stars, you expect something. You expect a little bit more salacious and a little bit more out there. There's this like crazy perfect storm and the timing of it all, and coming to Netflix where there was this shock value to it, going, this show on Netflix? What's happening? What's happening?
Hunting Wives creator, Rebecca Cutter, she gave this quote recently, and I wanted to read it back to you and get your response.
Okay.
She said this about your character, Margot. We certainly see everything through Sophie's eyes, so Brittany Snow is the star of the show. But the Margot character needs to work because you need to believe that Sophie is going to get swept up in like 4 hours. Like in a day and a half, she's going to be a lesbian. Who's going to do that for you? Malin Akerman is going to do that for you.
Oh my God.
And this is further evidenced in the ravenous lesbian fandom that this show has garnered.
The cult lesbian following now that has been so wonderful. I've gotten a nickname, Mother. So I've been called Mother, which I love, which is like the highest respect. I'm like, thank you very much. But it's wild and beautiful, and I'm very excited for it all. I'm happy that there are these beautiful scenes between myself and Brittany that are through a woman's gaze. Finally, it was really cool to be on set and have women at the helm who were just going, what do we think is sexy? And that was really great, and I think it resonated.
You've been in this industry for quite some time. How atypical is that? You've worked on so many projects. Just going through your IMDb, I was like, oh my God, this woman's never not working. So, and you've done quite a few sex scenes. How atypical is it for that to have a woman at the helm?
In the beginnings, it was pretty atypical. It was unusual, and but it's become more and more. Again, the net has widened, and even for myself, being a 47-year-old woman, to be doing these types of roles, it used to be cordoned off to younger women when I started too. I remember comments like from directors themselves saying, oh yeah, we didn't go with that woman because she just had a kid and nobody wants to see her naked anymore. And I'm going, wow, this is a rough industry, man. But everything has shifted. And so it's really fun to be working with a ton of women versus just a few. And not that I love working with men too, creative, wonderful men. I've worked with some of the best, but it's really lovely to just have those conversations when we're talking about intimate scenes with other women versus straight men who are like, this is what I find sexy. And I might find the same thing sexy too, but then there are a few nuances. We're like, well, what about this? Wouldn't that be beautiful to watch? And it doesn't mean that that's the lesbian point of view. It's just like what we're feeling right then and there, female gaze.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because this show is so much driven by word of mouth. I mean, because as you mentioned, that transition from Stars over to Netflix meant that there was no proper premiere, there was no proper press tour, and yet in some strange way, I almost feel like the show benefited from that because it started to become, I sort of pick up on this as someone who's just kind of constantly trying to get the temperature of social media, where I'm like, I'll start to see something I've never heard of, but I'll see it once and I'll be like, okay, then twice, then 3 times. And it starts to proliferate to the point where you're like, I need to check this thing out if I want to feel like I've got some semblance of what's happening in the culture. And that's how I felt about Hunting Wives, where it was truly word of mouth. And I think that actually gave it an intrigue that it might not have had if it went the more conventional route.
Totally. And I do feel that way sometimes with films, like, walking into a film that you know nothing about, or like you haven't seen the trailer or you have no idea and you walk in and it just blows you away. I feel like that sort of is what Hunting Wives became, because nobody, even with the trailer that was out, that trailer could not prepare you for what was about to happen.
No.
And I remember that feeling when I first read the scripts. I mean, the scene with the sheriff and Callie in bed, I just went, I have to do this show. I've never seen this on TV. How brave, how awesome, how like vulnerable, and who's gonna play this role?
Yes.
Good on them. Like,
and just for people that haven't gotten there, minor spoiler, but in that scene we have Callie is pegging her husband. You know?
And I have talked to many guy friends who, straight, gay, whatever, who enjoy that situation.
Yeah. A prostate's a prostate.
Yeah. I was like, guys, why hasn't this ever been in a show? This is amazing.
It's funny though, because I feel like that's such an outrageous moment on the show, and it's one of like 20, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, as you were saying that just now, you're like, I can't believe I read this. I was like, which episode and which scene are you speaking to?
Yeah.
Because there are so many moments. It's truly edgy television.
Sure.
And Rebecca has spoken about the fact that she calls this show anti-prestige. And I love that terminology, because I do feel like with the boom of prestige television, particularly in the early 2000s, I think it became really aspirational for so many writers and creators to want to make prestige television, which made it seem like all other forms of television, just by virtue, were lesser. Yeah. And I think this show is such a reminder of there's sort of again, that salacious quality. It's gratuitous in a non-derogatory sense. Yeah. And I think it leans into that. It has fun with it. It takes itself seriously at times, and in other times less so. So I'm wondering, when you hear these statements sort of analyzing the show as bringing sex back, does that vibe for you? Or do you understand sort of what people are getting at when they say that?
You know, I think of other shows like Outlander and Game of Thrones, and like, you know, we're going, it's been around, guys, for sure. But I do understand it, and I think we're in a conservative situation here. We're in deep East Texas, you know, church-going people. So I think that juxtaposition just makes it even wilder, because maybe you expect it more in Game of Thrones, and you expect it more. It's just unexpected, and I think that's why it's just more in your face. And I mean, all of the things that Rebecca says and all of the comments, I think, are true. And I think that it's the reason why, you know, housewives of X, Y, and Z exist and all these reality shows, because people love to watch a train wreck, and people love it's just fun, titillating TV. It's like popcorn stuff, you know, and we read those books. You know, those are the books that sell the most. All the ladies sitting on the beach every summer reading 50 Shades of Grey or thereafter, you know. This is that show.
These women, particularly the aforementioned Hunting Wives, they have a real friendship. They have a real connection. I had an immediate judgment of these women,
sure,
to be honest. And I think by episode 2 or 3, I started to look at myself and sort of say, well, what's that about? Why are you judging them? And I think the show does that in a really interesting way, especially because you can help but fall in love with these women. Sure. And then there's also a part of you that's like, I think maybe I want to go hunting with them. You know?
We all want to go hunting with them. Really. It's a fun time. You just got to be careful.
I would imagine.
Not even the guns. You got to be careful for Margot. I think you're right. I think we all, I had judgment going into it. I was like, wait, a show about, you know, red state, guns, things, everything that I am like, ooh, you know, I'm not sure. Can we talk about this? But the way it was written, Rebecca, the way she wrote it is so, it's tongue in cheek. Like you said, there are moments where it's real and there are moments where it's making fun of itself, and you have to know what you're making. And I think that's why just like we see it through Sophie's eyes, you know, and she's like, I'm not this person. And then you go, or am I? Yeah. This is kind of fun. And why wouldn't I? And I'm going to buy into this. And, you know, they don't really take everything seriously. I mean, if you told Margot you have to go and sacrifice goats on Fridays to get into this group instead of going to church, that's what she'd be doing. She doesn't really believe in everything, all that stuff. So that's why we go, oh, she's fun. She's, you know, she's somebody that I want to, you know, maybe hang out with for a day. But I do think that Rebecca did a great job of creating these characters. And I think that's why I loved it too. The casting was an excellent casting, where you just go, everyone's just bringing some good acting into this. And so that, again, makes it less soapy and more just tongue in cheek.
And I think there's something about world building. And I think it's a term that is not overly familiar to, people who are just turning on the television, but there's something so established about this town and the rules of this town and what the church looks like and what the homes look like and what the school looks like and who the principal is and how he communicates with the parents. And I just have such a clear sense of this place. In episode 1, when Sophie first arrives, just looking at all the extras at that party and the grandness of that event.
NRA fundraiser, yeah.
An NRA fundraiser,
Yeah.
yes, of
As
course,
you do,
yes. Just even that party alone, I was like, this feels like what that party would be like. It doesn't feel like just a bunch of extras that were brought in. I was like, there's something just so lived in about the world of this show that I think is really comfortable.
I think that probably comes a lot from having May Cobb's novel as well, and the conversations that May and Rebecca had.
Yeah, because I read that they spent some time together.
They spent a lot of time together, and May was like, I had to tone down some of this stuff compared to what it really is like, at these fundraisers and parties and stuff like that, which is crazy to me. I really want to go to one of these fundraisers now just to observe.
Anthropological study.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But I think that is why it maybe feels lived, which is such a beautiful thing. I'm going to have to relay that to Rebecca, or maybe she'll listen to this. But I think that's really lovely to know that you felt that it was a lived in world, because that is hard to create. Yeah. I think it's really tough, especially in the beginning of a show and kind of figuring out what it looks like and who, but you're right. The rules were really set and the town was really established. And I think that is thanks to May and Rebecca having all the conversations about what May has lived through, and Rebecca going and experiencing it with her. It really makes a difference.
So we were talking about the lesbian fan base for the show. And on that note, there's a viral post going around right now. I don't know if you know about this. And it reads, "Oh, you know Malin Akerman from Hunting Wives. I know her from 2014 when she kissed CARLA GUGINO during the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge. And it includes a video of you both aggressively making out before having ice thrown on you. Can you give me the oral history of that video?" Oh my God. Were you aware it was recirculating?
No, I was not aware it was recirculating. That's hilarious. We wanted to be... CARLA GUGINO is one of my best girlfriends ever. Her husband is a filmmaker, Sebastian Gutierrez, who we both worked with several times. And we always have a blast together. And we just thought, all right, what can we do different that will just get a lot of eyes on this video and raise a lot of money for ALS? We're like, oh, let's just kiss and then, get Sebastian to pour the ice on us. I don't know why we came up with that idea, but we did, and we did it. And as soon as the ice was poured, we just couldn't keep a straight face. We said we were going to try to just continue through the whole thing, but the gig was up once the ice hit us. But there wasn't much. It was more just originality, lots of eyes on, the cause, and raise lots of money.
I think you did that. Chop, well done.
Thanks.
You have so many memorable roles, but among them, for me, Juna Milken from The Comeback is so important to so many. In fact, when Baby Girl, the film, came out last year, all I could think that whole time was this is co-opting from Juna Milken.
Listen, baby girl.
Mm-hmm. There's also a moment on Hunting Wives when Margot says, "Baby girl."
Come on, baby girl.
Listen, that is so ingrained in me. Like you said, it's important for you, for many people, but for me, it was my first real job in Hollywood. So it was the beginnings of everything for me. So Baby Girl and Juna Milken are part of my soul. So anytime I hear it, it was really funny when I call her Baby Girl. I was like, wait, okay, so I've passed the torch now. I'm not Baby Girl anymore. I'm, I don't know, femme fatale who's just taking advantage of this sweet baby girl. So it just, it shifted the whole dynamic.
I was going to say, it's like you are Valerie in that moment, yeah. But comparing Margot to Valerie, do you ever wonder if Valerie and Margot were to meet?
I don't know that they'd be friends for very long. Yeah, it'd be like a very forced lunch, and they would say goodbye and never call each other again.
I think they'd have a hard time understanding one 100%.
Another.
But then what about with Juna and Margot?
Well, Juna's grown up now, isn't she?
Yeah.
So a little different. I don't know. I would be curious to see that lunch.
You mentioned The Comeback was one of your first gigs. So I read that you came over from Sweden to LA.
To Canada.
To Canada. Oh, excuse me.
And then Canada to LA.
And at that point, you, from what I read, you were pursuing acting, but you weren't all the way in.
Yes. Well, I wasn't all the way in because I couldn't get in. That's usually the case. So my other foot was in music. I met a band and they needed a front singer, and I had not sang before, but they were willing to teach me, and they needed someone to be a lyricist because it was a band from Italy. And so I jumped into that. So I was doing music and trying to be an actor.
Which is interesting because the character of Juna, she had established herself kind of as a singer, and then Room and Board was her first acting gig.
Yeah. And it was all just like, well, the thing is that I was handing out flyers for my show at Viper Room, literally on set.
You, not Juna.
Me, not Juna. To MPK and everybody. I was like, if you guys want to come, and this was in the beginning of the season. And they're like, wait, you have a band? Wouldn't that be funny if like we incorporate it? So that's my band in the show that they incorporated at the Viper Room. Yeah. So it sparked ideas for this character, which was really cool. My band was stoked. They're like, wait, we get to be on HBO? This is amazing.
Well, it's also an incredibly memorable moment because we get Valerie dancing.
Sure do.
At your concert.
With her fringe jacket.
Face up to the wave that breaks you. Be what you know, to be bold.
Yeah, she's quite a mover.
Oh, I love her so much.
Wow. So were there aspects of your life that were incorporated into Juna, or just that was the
no,
specific?
that was the only thing. Yeah. I mean, well, to be fair, I guess, when the breakdown came in, even just for the auditions, they said, it's this young girl who's doing her first show and she gets to work with an icon. And I'm like, so basically like this show. Yeah. So I don't have to act. I just be me because it's LISA KUDROW and I've watched her growing up. So it was parallel to my own life, really.
So for people that don't know, this is 2005. Yep. Michael Patrick King has just wrapped Sex and the City. Yep. LISA KUDROW has just wrapped Friends. So there was so much attention on this show because it was the confluence of these two superstars coming together. Yeah. Beyond that, and I think it's hard for people to remember the landscape of television at the time, this was so, I hate when people say this, but it's so true of the comeback, ahead of its time. It really was satirizing the beginnings of reality television. And I stress how different reality television was in that 2000 to 2005 era. Way more Wild West. I was rewatching a recent episode from like an early season of Real Housewives of Orange County, and they have underage girls, one of the daughters of one of the housewives, drinking on camera. And it's just instances like that were, status quo at the time that would never go now. This was a time when it really was about capturing found footage. Morality, I was going to say out the window, not even a factor. And so a lot of what Valerie and by proxy the comeback were responding to was sort of her intrigue at this genre, while also this curiosity she had, and kind of she looked down on it in a sense, but out of her desire to have this career resurgence, she was kind of willing to get in the mud. And the first season in particular was kind of exploring to what length she was willing to do that. You're Juna, you're the star of the show within the show, Room and Board, but you end up having, your character Juna has this really special bond with Valerie because Valerie both really takes her under her wing while also being really envious of her fame. And in a way, and this is what I love about Valerie, Valerie sees herself in Juna. I think it might be fair to say that Juna is on a trajectory that might outpace Valerie's, but I also think it's a really tender relationship that the two of you have. What was it like for you, as you said, first gig, you're working with the icon LISA KUDROW, but she's embodying what would become an iconic role, and you're in the early stages of like watching Valerie come to life. I said to MPK when he was on this podcast, Valerie's so real to so many of us. I can only imagine for you, it's like, I miss her. Like she is a presence. And so
she was my mother.
Before you were mother, she was mother.
Yes. Very different kind of mother. But truly just, it was a special bond. And I love Lisa. I still have a special bond with her. Her and Michael Patrick King gave me life, literally, in this business. And being on that set with her and watching her work and create this incredible character was life-changing. Truly. I don't even know, where to begin or what to say, but I loved that relationship that we got to have that it wasn't envious and that wasn't just it, because then I don't think we would have liked her as much, either one of them really. And I loved that it became this friendship, this mentorship, you know, even though everyone kind of saw and they're like, Juna, you don't need this, you know, she's passe. And but yeah, it was, I miss her too. I miss her very much. I love all her quotes, and I think everyone quotes them all the time. You know, I don't need to see that. And but I just adore Lisa as a person. And again, it's hard because reality and the comeback kind of get mixed together. It really was such a huge moment in my life and a huge moment in Juna's life, that the fact that we get to continue and like did a second season and get to come back and go, how are you? How's life been? What has been happening in the trajectory? And I got to share with Lisa, and she gets to share with me, and we get to keep that connection. It's special. It's special. It's something that I'll never get ever with any other show.
One of my favorite moments from season 1 between the two of you is, I believe, when you're having lunch at Craig's. Yeah. And you're late to lunch, and because you're filming a reality show, Valerie is left alone, and there's this amazing shot of her. She's trying to find something to do, so she decides to eat some bread, but then she doesn't want to be seen eating on camera. So you're watching Lisa as Valerie having to negotiate the desire to make something happen, because Valerie's always trying to sort of do something for the camera, make it interesting. And then you show up, and she kind of gives you her version of like a stern warning about like, listen, we're both on this show. It's going to be a rocket ship for the both of us. So we need to be there for each other.
You know, so let's avoid who stood up who at what restaurant, you know, and because that's what sells papers. Right. You know, so let's make a pact here and now, you and I, that we are going to watch out for each other.
And I love the framework of like, she's mad at you for not being there, but she's like, but I want you to know that like, I'm going to be there when you need me too, right?
Totally.
It's not just that, I'm not saying I need you to show up for me. Yeah. I'm letting you know that you show up for me because I'm going to show up for you. And like you said, it's like, I think that they have this genuine bond that I think grounds the show so much. When you came back, what was that like for you to bring her back to life and kind of once again see Lisa embodying Valerie?
It felt a little bittersweet, just because I guess because I felt more grown up, and she didn't feel like mother in the same way. Although I'll never stop idolizing her as an actress and a human being. But I think that it was just the shift that they made in the storyline had also felt like the shift in my life. So it's like, and it's not Lisa's story at all, you know what I mean? But it's really wild to, it's hard to explain. It's really a really crazy feeling to have a show that kind of parallels life at all. It's like putting markers and milestones in your own life. And here we are coming back and reunited with the people who got me started, and reflecting on that and putting that in the story too, because she comes to, I think it was one of my Hollywood parties.
Juna.
There she is, baby girl. Cut your hair. Hi. Look at you.
Right. We've done some of these now, or I have. I hadn't before we shot the first season to come back, and you're like, I know what this is.
Which is so funny, because it's like she wasn't written to be you or
no, not at all. Not at all. But I think it is sort of that. What they do know, Michael and Lisa, is how this business works, and that if somebody comes in young and starting their career and they do take off, then this is where it kind of goes, and this is what happens.
You got to share quite a few scenes with the late Robert Morris. Yeah. He is the heart and soul of the comeback. I'm wondering what it was like getting to work with him. He played Mickey. Mickey and Juna have this incredible bond.
Robert was one of the best. I adore him. I remember the first season, he would call me into his trailer. He's like, Malin, come here. I've got some costume jewelry for you. And he'd like bring me this costume jewelry that he had left over from home. And he'd gift me all this beautiful costume jewelry and we would just gush. We were gal pals, you know, he was the sweetest and told me stories. And I think, you know, he had been, oh no, I might get it wrong, a school teacher or a pastor. It was or maybe a mix, or, you know, something like that, or Sunday school teacher. But he was just so good with people, and he was so loving, and he was just so generous, and hadn't done much in the acting world. So this was kind of the beginning for both of us, and a whole new experience. So we really bonded off and on screen, and he was a gem. He put a mark in everybody's heart.
Do you have a favorite Juna Mickey moment from the show?
I think there's a moment where I say to him, there's a really cute guy that I have for him, but he hasn't really outed himself on camera, and just his face in that moment kills me every time.
What is it, dear?
I don't know if you're seeing anyone, but there's this guy in my building. He's like 55 and so nice, and his lover just died. Anyway, I think you guys would totally hit it off, so if you want his number or something, just let me know.
They did announce a season 3 of the show. Were you contacted at all? Do you know anything about what's to come?
I don't know too much. Everyone keeps everything close to the chest. I'm not at liberty to speak much about it. I really don't know much either, but I don't know where we're gonna go with it. I'm very curious.
Well, okay, so like there's the advent of AI. Yes. There's the writer's strike that happened. So there's a couple of like events that have happened in Hollywood that I think could impact Valerie that I'd be interested in. But then also, and thinking about the rise of reality competition shows like The Traitors. And so I keep thinking about like if Valerie were poached to be a part of some reality competition show, and the characters that could invite into her orbit.
I like that one.
Anyway, so that's Valerie.
Yeah, you might need to sit in the writer's room with her.
I just would like to just be in, the ether of MBK. So that's a season 3. On the subject of, continued seasons of shows, everyone is clamoring for a Hunting Wives season 2. So there's this profile of Rebecca Cutter in the Hollywood Reporter recently. She said that she didn't know where it stood. You can choose your words carefully here. But what's confusing is when you have a show that's a hit, even shows that aren't hits sometimes are given, multi-season orders. It's rare to have a show that's this big of a hit. What are we waiting for?
I'll tell you what we're waiting for. And I can tell you certain things. I can tell you that I don't know yet. There's nothing confirmed. But I mean, we're all sitting here pretty positively going, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a season 2. I can't imagine there isn't. But what the holdup is that, like we were saying, it was supposed to be on Starz. Lionsgate and Starz separated. And I think Netflix acquired it just for a year. And so there's renegotiations. And I think that's where the holdup is that I don't think Netflix realized, I don't think any of us realized what this was going to become. So now I think the powers that be are having conversations of like what the future looks like for this. Are we doing another year? Are we going to maybe do a contract for 3? Because we had a certain contract with Starz that obviously went out the window. So I think it's just the renegotiation stage is what I'm hoping. And if someone from Netflix is saying that, then that makes me feel good, because at the same time, I said to because we're on a little thread, us and the Hunting Wives gals with Rebecca Cutter, and we're like, I mean, if Netflix doesn't pick it up, couldn't we take it anywhere? And like maybe someone else would pick it up? Because who would want to just drop this, if it's been such a success?
Well, not only has it been such a success, but where we left off in that finale, there are questions that need answered.
Yes, 100%. We can't just leave it like that.
We absolutely can't. And I feel like I get the sense that it was written for a ... Interestingly, in that same interview, Rebecca mentioned she was asked because a lot of characters unfortunately didn't make it, and she was asked if Dermot Mulroney's character will be back. Rebecca confirmed he would be, which is interesting because where we leave off is that the two of you have parted. Yeah. But so there are some breadcrumbs as to follow in terms of where the story might go.
Well, I think, listen, this truly is from no source at all. This is just my guesstimate, and I might be proven completely wrong, but I'm thinking if Jed Banks is running for governor of Texas, we don't want any stuff to... It's like politicians. They cover everything up until they can't anymore, even if they have to bury files under 5 million pounds of dirt. I think Jed will have to come back together with Margot in order to present a certain credibility to their marriage, and bury all the skeletons, because Jill has been ousted as the killer. So we can come back to all right, Jill is the killer. We're going to keep everything else under wraps.
We do have another dead body on our hands now, one that Margot doesn't yet know about.
No, she doesn't know about, but I think she has. I don't think she thinks that he's dead, but I think she thinks that something's up because that's very strange that there was breathing on the other side of that phone. We don't know what's happening.
There was a lot of breathing.
A lot of breathing.
I wanted to be like,
and
Sophie.
It definitely wouldn't have been Kyle, or it could have been Kyle and he's really hurt, or like what. She knows that something's up. Yeah. But if I were to guess, I would say that we will see Jed and Margot, get back together just for his political career. I don't know that they'll be on. I think she'll be on thin ice, but I think maybe for him they maybe make a deal. And I also think now we have two killers, Sophie and Margot. I mean, now they can be together because they're both murderers, so maybe we continue that love story.
Did you feel like, I'm curious, especially from your perspective as an actor, first reading the script, did you find theirs to be a love story? And if so, was it a romantic love story, or was it a friendship that went to a different place by convenience?
If I answer from Margot's point of view, I think that she always has an agenda. And I think it's also just a power play. I think she likes being in power. So I don't know how much. I think certain things about Sophie caught her off guard. And I do think that she has feelings for Sophie. I think this is the first person where she feels matched as far as intelligence and EQ, because she hangs out with all these hunting wives who are fun, but they don't titillate. Margot's a survivor, and survivors are real smart people because you have to be a chameleon in order to survive. And I think she sees the same thing in Sophie, and she sees this smart woman, different kinds of smart, but I think she likes it, and I think she really titillates her mentally, which I don't think she's had for a while. So I think there are aspects of this that is a love story, and elements of surprise even for Margot, and obviously for Sophie, of like this connection. I don't think that it's new for Margot to have new shiny toys, but I think this one's a unique toy, and I think that this has thrown her off her guard.
Which is fun because you get the sense Margot's not someone who's ever
easily thrown off.
Yeah.
No, especially that scene in the motel where she comes in and she's like, smacks her, and then Sophie grabs her by the neck. You're not in control. And I was like, oh my God.
Which is shocking, both to see Margot not in control, but to see Sophie take control.
Yeah, it was awesome. I loved that scene. I was like, you go, girl. And shocking. And I loved all that because it was like, you have to tear Margot down in order to build her back up, in order for her to rebuild and for her to understand where she stands, and it's not easy to take over Margot Banks. Yeah. She's quite strong.
Yeah, she's scary.
Yeah, she's scary.
Yeah. You've been acting for over 20 years now. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that there are hits and there are misses. And as an actor, you kind of always have to be out there selling the product. And I'm wondering what it's like for you at this stage of your career. It's clear to me, I could be wrong, that you love making the show. You're proud of this show. And then on top of that it is a hit is maybe the gravy of it, right? But I'm wondering, with that 20 years of experience and with those hits and misses, what is it like in this moment to be a part of something that is a hit?
It's amazing. It's really, listen, I think the thing that's making me most excited is that I really love everyone that I worked with. And I think Rebecca and May are so worthy of this. I just think they did an incredible job. And so for us to be a part of, to be chosen and to be given this role that is, for me, just a role of a lifetime. It's so nuanced and so much to work with, which is also really unique. I mean, there have been a few roles along the way that I definitely wished could have had this success rate that this show is having, but to finally have a role that I love, people that I love working with, a show that I think is super fun, to then have the audience match that and go, yeah, we agreed. Like, this is great. It's worthy of like all the success that it's having, is so much fun and is really the first time ever. And I mean, I'm 47 years old, so it's pretty great that I didn't know if this moment would ever happen. And that's okay too. I've had a great career, but how fun to have this experience and just like this as Erwin Stoff, our producer, called me and said, Malin, like, this is a cultural phenomenon. It's like, wow, really? That's great. So it is fun and amazing, and I feel very excited to get to experience something like this in my career.
You just work so much. You've done so many roles, film and television, for so much of your career. And I imagine, like, there's so many, walking onto new sets, working with new actors, new DPs, all of that comes with it. When did the idea for you land that acting was going to be a viable career? Because as we mentioned earlier, you come out to Hollywood, you're pursuing singing, some acting roles, it sounds like, start to just kind of pop up.
At that time, there was something called pilot season, which was usually two or three times a year. And it was like 3 months where everyone who'd written a pilot for a TV show was casting. You'd go to like 4 or 5 auditions a day. It was just madness. And then they'd shoot, maybe 30 of them, and then maybe 3 of them would get picked up. So it was just this mad dash for pilot season. And so there was kind of like these lulls in between. And I wasn't really anybody, and it was hard to get me in rooms, and so my manager at the time said, can I just send you out for pilot season, this pilot season? I was like, yeah, I think this will be the last one, because I'm not really hitting anything here. Like, it's been fun. I've gotten a few callbacks, but maybe it's not for me. And that was the pilot season where the comeback was casting. And that's when I got that. So it's been like I still don't know if acting is going to be, it's every day we're like, I don't know, there are lulls, and you're like, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe it wasn't meant to be. And I say that with a grin as well, where I'm like, I know I could do some films, but I'd love to like be able to have choices instead of just having to take films because I need to put food on the table. Like, it really is that sometimes in this business where writer strikes or COVID, or there was just like this weird lull where people within streamers and networks were trying to figure out, how they were reconfiguring. And then all of a sudden, for 6 months, me and my actor friends were going, are you working? Nope. All right. Should we just go for walks and have lunch? Because we're not doing anything. Soon I'm going to have to dip into all my savings and retirement plan. And so you never really know. But I think there was a moment where rom-coms were really a big deal back in early 2000s. And I was lucky enough to be in a stream of them. And that's when I went, oh, okay, I think I can do this now. I think I can say that I'm an actor and I can make a living off of it. And that's, it was The Heartbreak Kid and 27 Dresses and The Proposal, like all that stuff. It was all, one after the other. And that's when I realized.
And also, this string of films you're mentioning, highly rewatchable films. I think that's one of the great things about so many of your projects is the rewatchability factor. Again, like we're talking about things like Hunting Wives, that it invokes conversation, and 27 Dresses invokes the wanting to rewatch. And there's just so many aspects to your work that I think are so distinguishing from others. But you talk about the lulls that happen, which I think are true of any actor in their career. But I'm wondering, in those moments of lull, do you ever start to dream and say, okay, well, if this doesn't work out, whatever that means, maybe I could do this or that? Have there ever been times that you've considered a different, not even alternative career path, just something maybe to do intermittently?
Yeah. It's not as lucrative as acting could be, but I started my life wanting to be a child psychologist, studying psychology at university. And then during COVID, certified myself as a youth and child development coach. So I have done courses and worked with boys in juvenile hall, just leadership consulting and values mining and all that kind of stuff. And that was under a friend of mine who was teaching me. She's a leadership coach and all that. So she created a program for these boys, and I was her co-leader, and it was awesome and life-changing. And I want to do that forever and ever. That's where I feel the most alive, is when I get to share with people just real life stories and things. And so I could definitely see myself going into that and continuing that, but later on in life. I feel like this story isn't done yet.
Yeah. I think there are going to be multiple stories.
Yeah, I hope so.
This is
see.
a chapter in a larger story. When you went and did that program, what kind of things were you speaking with the kids about?
A little bit of everything. So the really cool thing was, again, I give full credit to my friend who created this program specifically for these boys, and she's been a coach for a long, long time. So she trained me, and then we went and did 12 weeks straight. It was every Saturday for 12 weeks. We went in and we had a group of boys who were all under the age of 18 or in juvenile hall. And by the end of it, maybe we had 9 boys left because it's voluntary. They can come or they can leave. It was 3 to 4 hours, and we would break barriers and kind of just chat about, they would share about their lives or wouldn't. They didn't have to share anything. And then we'd break off into groups and we'd go, all right, what are things that are important to you and how can we align you with those values? Simple things. Oh, health is important. What's one thing you could do a day, when you get out here, like brush your teeth or, make sure that simple things, simple steps, and aligning them with what they want to achieve was one of the things. But the sharing was my favorite because we would sit around and we would kind of share what we want to get out of this or what the obstacles are in our life, or just share about ourselves. And it's the most present I've ever felt to human beings because these boys are survivors. And so their EQ levels are higher than anyone that I've ever met. They're very street smart and they read bullshit real quick. So, which is the opposite of Hollywood. And that was really cool. And so my friend Christy and I, we walked out of there going, I thought we were going in to teach them, but we feel like we've just been schooled and just broken down in the most beautiful way. So we really had to be mindful of how we approached the conversations, and how there was no bullshit allowed. There was no, we realized that this was a two-way street.
Was it challenging? As you're saying, it's like Hollywood, at least from the outside perspective, it is an industry comprised of quite a lot of bullshit. Yeah. Was it difficult for you to sort of like unlearn that in that moment? And were you able to take things that you learned there and then bring them into your work?
Yeah, no, not at all. It wasn't difficult. I mean, I don't live in the bullshit, You
don't strike me as someone who does.
It's more like I try to bring myself. I try to bring as much authenticity to every day of my life to a certain degree.
Connected to that, the casting director for Hunting Wives, Jean McCarthy, she describes you as fearless, which I do think connects to this earlier conversation. And I'm wondering, is fearlessness something that you've just always possessed? Is it something you've learned over time? Do you have to work to be fearless? Are you fearful and just a good actor?
I think that I'm mostly fearless, definitely. I attribute that to a few things. I think it's growing up in a Swedish family. Culturally, it's just a little different. It's a little bit more open. It was funny because my friend Michaela Watkins, fabulous actress, she just texted me. She'd just come back from her first trip to Sweden. She goes, "Oh my God, I love this place. Why are you not living here? I understand why you are, who you are, and the people." It's just, there's just a different culture and different vibe, a different underbelly that is a little bit more free. There's just liberal thinking. It's not tainted with a lot of religion or it's just logical thinking, I guess is the way to put it. And I think coming from a family, and again, the other aspect of that is like, I've been in saunas with family members and we're nude and we go skinny dipping, and like nudity is natural. And because it's so natural, it's not crazy to see boobs on TV, and like, it's just like part of life. And that, My Life as a Dog was a film that I saw when I was very young, Lasse Hallström. And it explores sexuality and coming of age. And I just feel like growing up in a family that was very free maybe made me see that as just like a part of humanity and who we are, a sexual freedom, a natural freedom. And so that was my baseline, which helped me just I guess like Margot, it feels like, this feels good to me, so I'm going to do whatever I feel like doing. And people are always going to judge no matter what you do. Whether you do this or that, it's going to be wrong in certain people's minds. And so I just got to go with what my gut says. And I've kind of done that my whole life. And I think also I moved out at 16 and just kind of figuring out who I was, and it took a long time, by the way. Like, I just feel more grounded now in my 40s than I ever have. It took time to figure out who I was and what I wanted to be, but I've always enjoyed just feeling free. And so whatever makes me feel free is what I have to offer.
The fear of aging that so many people have, do you think that's a real fear, or do you think it's something that is imposed on us? Like, we're meant, because we read so much rhetoric around people and the fear of aging, that we get imbued with this idea that doesn't actually exist within us?
I absolutely do. I think it's cultural. I don't think I feel better and more myself now than I ever have. I feel sexier. I feel, and that doesn't have to do with physicality. Mentally, I just feel like I got me. I'm all woman now. Like, I know who I am. I'm feeling myself. I'm feeling great. And to then be picked apart physically by outside sources, society, by what a woman should look like, what a man, like, you're just like, it drives you a bit nuts. It's a constant struggle for me, myself as well, and trying to not care, but then caring and listening and going, oh, should I? Oh my God, does my chin look, what am I doing? I got, stop. But yeah, I do think it's societal, 100%. Wouldn't it be nice if it was like, if there was this, just celebration where you go, oh my God, look at your wrinkles. They're so beautiful. I can't wait to get mine. Like, these are medals that you get for aging. I wish it was like that, but it's not.
I think sometimes there's a little bit of the tone of being overly celebratory of people, particularly women who are aging gracefully. I actually think it serves to work against what it's trying to do in being so celebratory. Like, isn't it brave that this woman is aging naturally?
Brave.
I think, yeah.
That's such a wrong word to use. You're like, brave. It doesn't have anything to do with it.
What we really need to do is just normalize these things as opposed to celebrate them.
Absolutely. The whole, like, you look great for your age. I'm like, oh, please.
Okay, before I let you go, I do have to ask about the wigs.
Can we talk about the wig?
We can talk about that.
Your wig has made a lot of headlines from
Yeah.
the show. This is the wig.
But I want to find a new angle to the conversation here, because what I imagine is interesting is you go and film this show. You're an actor. You've worn wigs before. Do you wear wigs a lot? Not you specifically, but just actors. Because I always say to my friends, I'm like, when you see a lot of people in television and films, a lot of people are wearing wigs. And my girlfriend was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I think a lot of people wear wigs.
I think, yes, there are a lot of wigs. And I think because when you are working a lot, your hair disappears. We call it working hair because it's every day. You're getting, hair dryers and curling irons, and it's ruining your hair, and you're dyeing it different colors for different roles. And so sometimes it's just, you just got to give it a break, man, because it's not going to last. It's going to get fried off. I've gone through that where, when I started Hunting Wives, my hair was real short and it was just fried. There wasn't much to work with there. So a lot of times I do clip-ins and I do extensions, but the extensions themselves ruin your hair as well. And so it's like this vicious downward spiral. So yeah, I think a lot of people enjoy wearing wigs when they're made properly. There are some lovely wigs that look quite real, just because it either gets, some actresses have pixie cuts and they need to have long hair for a role, and then you go, well, the easiest version of that is just putting a wig on. So yeah, there's a lot of that, just because the roles require different personalities, and then the wear and tear.
There was an original wig that was supposed to be used. For some reason, it didn't arrive on time or something, and you had to sort of go with a backup. But I imagine it must be strange when something that was just a par for the course decision that's made when making a television show. There's a lot of moving parts. This wig's not available. Okay, we'll go with this one. Action, go. All these months later, having it be such a topic. What's interesting, though, is I think it's been scrutinized in a fun way. If it were something that people were hating on, I wouldn't bring it up with you now, because I don't think you ever want to approach an actor and be like, everyone's talking shit about this. I think people are having fun with it, and I think they've come to love the wig, and I get the sense from what you've said about it that you are in on the fun of it all. But I'm wondering, is it odd for something that I imagine wasn't given much thought at the time to become such an obsession?
Its own character in the show? Yeah. Definitely. No one could have guessed that. yeah, we kind of just went with what the best version of it was. We're like, well, this'll do. I mean, we can make it work. To then become, I think there's something on TikTok where you can put Margot's wig on your own head, or I'm not on TikTok. Someone sent it to me and they were like, look, they've made this thing out of it. I think it's awesome. I've been talking to Rebecca and I'm like, well, if we do a season 2, do we go with the wig or do we go natural now? Because she had mentioned, she's like, if we do a season 2, maybe we like just use your hair and put clips in. But now I'm questioning that. I mean, that's getting rid of a whole other character. So I really don't know the answer to that yet. We're going to have to go out there and take like an audience poll and see what people want.
I also think like if this were Sex in the City, it might be one thing, but this is Hunting Wives.
Exactly.
And this is Texas.
Exactly.
And I don't think it's so out of character.
Like you were saying, it's anti-prestige. It's not quite like, so we can have fun with it. Yeah. It can remain another character and maybe we go even wilder with it.
I was just going to say, it's kind of like, why scale back, lean in?
Go more.
Go more. That's
Texas.
the lesson of today. More.
Go more. More
yes.
is more.
Thank you so much. This was a pleasure.